Welcome everyone, and thanks for joining us for today's episode of Canal Days. As always, I'm your host Carrie, along with my co-host, founder of Historical Tours of Greater Holyoke, Robert Kumo. Our Canal Days series delves into the vast collection of historical sites throughout Massachusetts, with Robert's expertise of the local history as our personal guide. Each episode, we uncover history throughout local communities, highlighting the historic landmarks and uncovering their seminal significance. Today's episode of Canal Days will be discussing and learning about the trails in the Connecticut River Valley of Massachusetts. So, itemize some of the trails along the Connecticut River.
Some of the neurotic is the oldest of these. It was made at some point in the 1980s, and it is very large. If you count its extension into towards the area of Look Park in Northampton, it could be up to 10 miles long. And it meets with a lot of other trails along the way. It starts at the Belchtown border of Amherst, and it goes through Amherst, Hadley, in Northampton. So that's one of them. And then there's the Manhattan Rail Trail and the Southwick Rail Trail. All right, and we're going to talk about where they want to put more of these, where are these maps, and who puts up the funds for these. The Manhattan Rail Trail is a forked trail that starts near the Southampton border, and the major fork reaches all the way up to the Connecticut River, goes by a couple of old-time mills, and then another fork off to the left that was put in later goes off to Northampton and connects with the Norwotic Trail itself. There's the Southwick Trail, which is over the former Farmington Canal bed, which had been changed into a railroad bed. And that one goes up to Westfield and goes through Westfield. It also, towards the south, hooks up with the Farmington Bike Trail. And it's an extremely long one, probably the longest in New England itself. It's about 30 miles long or more, maybe up to 40. And it might even be longer than the Cape Cod one, I'm not sure. It'll be close though. And there's one in Springfield right along the waterfront, and that one's a quite delightful one. It starts at one bridge and goes to the next bridge along, and continues onwards a bit. There's one in Chicopee along its southern waterfront, starting very close to where the turnpike goes over the Connecticut River, and then upwards halfway through Chicopee, upwards to a park. And that one will be extended at some point in both directions. There's also bike trails in South Hadley and in Holyoke that are simpler. They're along the roadside for most part. And the one in Westfield, of course, is an extension of the one that comes up from Southwick. There's one in East Long Meadow. In East Long Meadow, it's only about 1.2 miles at this point, but they want to make that one a lot longer too.
And disclose the locations they want to create more of these bike trails.
They want to create one in Southampton someday to connect the one that's in Westfield already and the one that's in East Hampton already. And that would allow you to go from the eastern tip of Amherst all the way through many towns to Southwick, and then onwards through Southwick into Granby, Connecticut, all the way up to Farmington, Connecticut. That would be an enormous trail. That might be about 50 miles long. That would be incredible. So they have one piece they need to make in Southampton. I hope they make it someday. And in Connecticut itself, there's one piece missing, and that's in Plainville, Connecticut. And both communities refuse to have bike paths, but someday we hope they'll allow it to come through. And they don't want to push the issue because they want these communities to be happy. So that's one. They want to extend the one in Springfield in both directions into Long Meadow and then into Chicopee to meet the Chicopee one. They want to extend the Chicopee one north to come into South Hadley near South Lake Beach Ground and connect to the roadside bike path in that area. And they want to extend the one at Holyoke southern, in the southern path, both one going into downtown area and the one going along Northampton Street. So there's a lot they want to join together. Hopefully someday also Belchtown could allow the extension of their Neurotic bike trail. It's been over 30 years since the Neurotic was made, and it's only been extended into Northampton. Now on Northampton side, the one that goes through downtown up to Look Park, they hopefully want to extend that one upwards into Williamsburg, which would be great.
And stick around and we'll be right back after this quick announcement. Are you fascinated with local history and eager to investigate the obscure treasures off the beaten path throughout the state of Massachusetts? Or maybe just seeking an unforgettable cultural activity for family and friends to enjoy? Look no further than Historical Tours of Greater Holyoke, founded by Robert Kumu. With over a decade of experience, Robert offers captivating tours and presentations of historic sites and landmarks throughout the state. Whether you're interested in canals, cemeteries, charming churches, or more, Robert's tours provide a unique and enriching experience for all. And that's not it. You can also schedule private tours tailored to your interests, ensuring a personalized adventure and unforgettable memories. Perfect for families or groups of all sizes, making for an exciting hands-on learning experience that brings history to life. Simply visit HolyokeCanalTour.org or email bobcat4214, capital B, @yahoo.com to book your private tour today. So, getting back to our episode on the bike trails of the Connecticut River Valley. So, clarify, are there maps for the trails that are accessible to the public?
Yes, almost all of these trails have beautiful maps on them, so you can get a hold of those. So, some are in paper form, so you can get those copies at retailers or at public stations. There's also roadside maps along some of these bike paths, such as Neurotic. There's also internet-based maps, which are probably the most popular, and you can actually use your cell phone or tablet and follow along and see highlights. You can also get books. There's books written about the rail trails of New England, and of course all these trails are highlighted. So there's always a way to go along. And I'm trying to build up historical bike history bike tours, have bike tours myself, and write them also on the internet, so people go along a bike trail and find out what they're looking at and learn about history along the way. So through Amherst, you might seem that you're not seeing much from that bike trail, but of course there's always something. You're always crossing brooks and streams. You're always crossing by colleges a lot, and same with Hadley. Definitely the same with Northampton. Lots of histories from that bike path. You can see a lot of things, and I've already done a lot right at the place where the Calvin Coolidge Bridge is, where they have a major bridge crossing of their Neurotic bike trail over an old railroad bridge there. And I talk about that history. And up to Look Park. And then East Hampton, I'm doing the same thing. In Springfield, I have done one. And I want to continue doing these. And I want to start having group tours along here so you can learn.
And reveal where the funds for these trails come from.
They mostly come from a fund, of the Pullman Fund. The Pullman Fund wasn't used up when the passenger trains started decreasing in the amount of use. The Pullman Fund, which is an occupation on a train, had a high value to it. And out of there, they started using those funds because they realized they would never be used in a way they were intended. And you could apply for them. You have to have permission of the community, and then the state puts in a tiny bit of money, and away you go. if you're selected, then you can get a rail trail going in. So there's a lot of rail trails across the United States, and thus a lot of communities put in for them. But once they're around, they're fairly easy to maintain, and they're always heavily used. Every bike path around is used extensively. So maybe someday you can advocate for one, but at least you can use them and appreciate them, and from my point of view, learn about their history. Thank you.
And thank you for joining us for our episode of the bike trails throughout the Connecticut River Valley, and joining us on our journey through the rich history. And we hope you enjoyed uncovering some of the hidden and overlooked marvels and their fascinating stories that shaped our past and the state of Massachusetts. A special thanks to Robert Camus, founder of Historical Tours of Greater Holyoke, for sharing his passion and expertise with us. Remember, you can find more information about Robert's tours, book private tours, and explore the Canal Days video and podcast series at holyokecanaltour.org. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please like, comment, and share. We'd love to hear your thoughts and suggestions for future episodes. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to tune into our next episode of Canal Days. Until next time.